say is not wise. Part of human intercourse is to talk about entertainment, the weather, all kinds of things that may not have great social significance, but ought to be free, unless the government has some overwhelming interest in shutting it down. Speaking of Roberts, Scalia asked during the argument, sort of facetiously, the way Scalia is, how about giving a medal of shame to those who have falsely claimed to have earned the Medal of Honor? There's laughter in the courtroom. Scalia, I think that would be good. And Libby, the Alvarez lawyer, says, well, Your Honor, actually that's certainly something the government could do. Whereupon Roberts says, well, not under your theory, right? I mean, it's still a sanction for telling something that you say is protected under the First Amendment. Whether you get 6 months in jail or a medal of shame doesn't matter under your theory. Does this sound like the same Roberts that we knew from Stevens? Well, your assignment for the paper is to write the front page news story the day after the court decides the case, but you've got to write it before the court decides the case. So you have to predict what the court will do and what its reasoning is, and how each of the 9 justices voted on the case, as though you are writing the story for the New York Times or whoever online, Huffington Post, whatever you're writing for. You write the story describing what the court has done and how each justice voted. I'll post the detailed instructions about the assignment to you probably today, later on today, or tomorrow, or Saturday at the latest. It's not due until April 10th, so you got plenty of time to think about it and to do whatever research you think is appropriate in order to do that. If the court screws me up and decides the case quickly before April 10th, all that's canceled and I'll think of something else for your paper, Catherine. Good question. You're writing a news story, not an essay. You're writing for a general audience, not academics. You won't see any footnotes in the news story. You won't see any references to page something or other of some work. You can rely on the transcript of the argument, the briefs, and so on, the stuff that I posted on VSpace. If you go beyond that, I'm going to want a bibliography, but that'll be separate from the story itself. 4 pages only. Strict page limit. Right? I encourage you to make up quotes. But realistic ones, Justice Kennedy said that such and such. So it requires a little bit of creativity, a little imagination. Yeah, well, we'll work something out so that your research is not wasted. So if you have any questions about the assignment after I post it, you know where to find me. Any questions about the libel stuff or about Alvarez that we can address now? No? All right. Oh, Mark? I can't hear you. Well, what was decided in the Ninth Circuit in Alvarez, they didn't frame it in terms of a constitutional right to lie. They framed it that the First Amendment invalidates this law that makes it a crime to lie about receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor. So the law is unconstitutional. So that's the decision of the Ninth Circuit, that the law is unconstitutional. Go. What do you mean? Does it set any precedent? It's the law. That's right. That's the precedent. So if you're prosecuted tomorrow for lying about receiving a military decoration, I recommend that you get your lawyers to cite the Alvarez decision in the Ninth Circuit, showing that the law you're being prosecuted under is unconstitutional, and that's your defense. And that precedent set by Alvarez in the Ninth Circuit frees you from the possibility of prosecution. Having said that, the Tenth Circuit last month decided exactly the opposite, upholding the law. So in the Tenth Circuit, don't lie about receiving a medal. Tenth Circuit is the mountains, Colorado and around there. In the Ninth Circuit on the West Coast, you're free to lie. That, of course, those different results are an excellent reason for the Supreme Court to get involved and establish what the law is nationwide. It's a national issue. Great. Yeah, I think most state and federal government in some of the federal laws on trademark and so on do make it unlawful falsely to advertise something to consumers. Basically, it's a kind of fraud, saying this product will do these wonders for you when there's no evidence that it will. But the government's allowed to restrict that kind of speech as a category, falsely representing something about a commercial product. It's in part because that's commercial speech, which something has less than complete First Amendment protection. It's an iffier category than obscenity. For example, obscenity is undoubtedly a category of unprotected speech, assuming you meet the definition of what is obscene. It's not protected. Yeah. I always hesitant to say never, but by the seat of my pants, I can't think of any case in which somebody has falsely stated something about themselves and the case has arrived in the Supreme Court. May well be the first. Yeah? Wait a second, Sam. You're a second-class citizen around here.
At what point would any mental disability or physical, at what point would any physical differences come into play? Say it turned out that Alvarez was mentally ill. At what point would that?
Well, if Alvarez was mentally ill, what effect would that have? That's no different in this case, Alvarez's case, than it is in any criminal case, that a possible plea to the charge is not guilty by reason of insanity. So if the defendant is deemed legally insane, he or she cannot be convicted of the crime. And then there's also the issue that can arise of being incompetent to stand trial. Like the guy who shot Gabby Giffords in Arizona. There's a serious question. I mean, he's clearly mentally ill. There's a serious question whether he's competent to stand trial. And the test for that is whether he's able to understand the charges against him and to assist his counsel in his own defense. And I don't know how that'll come out. He may spend a long time in mental institutions and never be convicted. But that's no different from every criminal case. I mean, Alvarez is not any. You wonder why he's such a compulsive liar. Maybe there's something mentally a little askew there, but he would not satisfy, I'm confident, the legal definition for insanity, which is fairly strict, and certainly not of incompetence to stand trial either. I mean, a lot of people who are mentally and emotionally impaired are convicted and sent to prison. A lot of them on death row. Okay, take the rest of the day off.